Hi everyone, my name's Kieran Broome and I'm an occupational therapist, and this is my story about how I use telehealth. So in my life I've got a number of different work roles. One of them is as a lecturer at the University of the Sunshine Coast, and I also run my own private practice. And I have a bit of a diversity in my private practice in terms of ages and caseloads, and see a mix of things like NDIS, DVA, my aged care, some private health insurance clients, no Medicare at this stage, but I do some medical legals as well. So I've got a bit of a mix there. My telehealth journey started quite a while ago. So in my university role, for the past 4 or 5 years, each year I've run a telehealth placement for students where they all come into a group room online with a couple of clients, and they interview those clients across a few weeks, do some assessments, and then also develop interventions and get feedback directly from the clients and individually about their interventions. So it was really good to have that background and to have that practice in terms of teaching others how to do some of the skills, like how we measure online or how we can conduct the interview and what we can transition from a face-to-face sort of context. In my private practice, because I live in a rural location and I also do a bit of rural outreach as well, a couple of hours from where I am, telehealth's been a really important, in the past probably a smaller part of my practice than it is now, but it's been a part of my practice where it's that opportunity to connect with clients when I'm not physically there. So what I'm going to talk you through today is a couple of the opportunities, challenges, and some recommendations for first timers who are going down this telehealth pathway at the moment. So some of the opportunities that I've found when using telehealth is that for a lot of my clients it's more convenient. They don't need to come in, travel to me, or I don't need to travel to them. So we both save a little bit on travel time. It often provides a little bit more flexibility with time. So if clients need to be seen for something urgent, I can often squeeze them in. Because I'm not needing to travel to different areas and try to align different people in different areas, I can be a bit more flexible with how I time each person. And if something's running late, that's okay. I can just send a quick note or email to my other clients just to let them know. Can we log on half an hour later? So it just gives me and the clients a little bit more flexibility as well. One of the really important things at this time is that with telehealth, there's really no infection control risks. We're not in people's homes, so we don't really have to worry about that. And we also have some reduced personal risks as well. So because we're not traveling, we're not going to be having car crashes. We're not going to have to worry about going into a place where we may not feel unsafe, may not feel safe. You do need to balance that in terms of we'll now be spending a little bit more time at our computer. You can actually get a lot more productivity from the day because sometimes you're not doing all the travel, you're not packing and booking out cars. So sometimes you're able to see a few more people, but you're spending a lot of time in front of a computer screen. So make sure you put in a lot of movement breaks, because when you do a lot of telehealth back to back, you'll get all those ergonomic risks that you do from doing a task for a long period of time. One of the other cool things is that when you're going out on a home visit, especially if you're doing something like rural outreach, you have to plan ahead a lot to make sure that you've got everything and make sure you don't miss anything when you're with the client. But with telehealth, if you forget something or you didn't get all the details, it's okay. You can just let the client know and do another quick telehealth session to back it up. One of the things which I think is most important in this telehealth space moving forward is that it can allow a better match between the client's needs and the therapist's expertise. So often if we're an occupational therapist within a regional area or within a service, we're providing services to those people regardless of whether we're necessarily the right OT for them. And what telehealth allows us to escape some of those geographic bounds so that we can get people matched with the OTs that are going to work best for them, because every OT has a different scope of practice and personality and interests as well. But it also comes with challenges as well. So one of the big things I find with telehealth in the past is getting people to question their habits and assumptions, and I have to do this on a daily basis. So one of those assumptions is that face-to-face may be better, and in many cases it's actually not. So there's a bit of research that in some areas, like in sort of mental health areas, it can actually be better using telehealth because people are more comfortable talking through that computer screen and sharing things about themselves. But there are some challenges as well, so it's always a bit of a way up. But it's also about questioning your habits. So sometimes in the past, I've automatically just gone, okay, cool, I'll pop out for a visit, when I probably could have thought that around and go, do I really need to do a face-to-face visit at this time, or will telehealth do the job? One of the other challenges is investing time upfront to develop your skills. It's not necessarily a huge amount of time. So most people, if you've done about an hour to 2 hours, just looking at some basic resources, you can often go and run a basic telehealth session the next day. In terms of giving yourself a really good grounding, I'd say about 4 hours all up, and you've got a good grounding to start to give things a go, and then to reflect on what else you might need to skill up in. One of the definite challenges about telehealth is upskilling clients. So some people say that telehealth won't work for everybody because not everybody has the tech savviness to be able to use telehealth, and I would question, sometimes we don't give our clients as much, we don't believe in them as much as we probably should, and they can do a lot more with the right support. So I do find that when clients are using telehealth for the first time, I've probably got to book an extra 15 minutes to half an hour with each of them, just for that first time, just so that they can, we can troubleshoot any of the tech issues, they can get comfortable with the sort of platform that we're using and learn some of the functions too. So you will have to add that in, but I guess in your overall workload and time frame, you're not necessarily driving anywhere, or you're not waiting for clients to turn up or balancing those other sort of clinical responsibilities. One of the flip sides of the flexibility of telehealth, and the fact that people can often, you can fit people in at different times and you don't necessarily have to go around and see a bunch of people at a set of times, is managing your clients' expectations around your availability. So I've found that once your clients know that you can do telehealth, sometimes they forget that you've got a whole lot of other clients and a whole lot of workload that isn't face-to-face that you have to do. And they can often be wanting telehealth a little bit more than you can offer. So just being clear, if you do need to add structure and say, actually, I can only see you at these booked appointment times, and if that's what works for you, then go in that direction. There is the issue of less digitally literate clients. So a lot of that, it's not necessarily that they're not as digitally literate. Sometimes people don't have the confidence with the technologies as well. What I have found is that for some of my rural and regional clients, once you not give them an ultimatum, but once you give them choices and say, I could do this faster if we do it by telehealth, or you're going to have to wait for this length of time, it's amazing what people are able to do. I also find that you need to be really patient with people. You'll often need to phone them up beforehand, talk them through what it's going to be like, and then phone them literally just before the appointment and get them to open up the emails and click on the links and problem solve some of the things that happen. So that's a couple of steps that you can do. You can also try to pick your devices as well. So for some people, they may have a smartphone, but be really bad with computers. So you might sort of pick and choose your battles and just go, let's just get this running on the smartphone, keep it simple and go from there. There's also the process, and I guess one of the differences between doing telehealth and doing face-to-face is that over telehealth, you're often asking the client or a support person or a family member to do some of the tasks. So it might be that task of moving you around the house to look at different areas or around the school environment. It can also be some more clinical tasks like measuring, looking for studs, measuring different dimensions of people or objects, or doing activities with the clients in the case of things like pediatrics or mental health. So a lot of this is no different to the sorts of education and demonstration that we use when we're teaching occupational therapy students or when we're teaching people to do something in a sustainable manner. So often it's about going, okay, I'm going to have to teach yet another person how to do some basic measuring and how to get that right, and that needs to be incorporated into that clinical time. And then one of the other real challenges is technology and connectivity breakdown. So I have had moments where the NBN has literally crashed for 4 hours, and then if you can, you want to have some workarounds to some backups. So sometimes, for example, if my NBN breaks down and loses connectivity, I might have to use my phone to do it and use that either as a hotspot or just go straight to using the platform on the phone. Sometimes it's not necessarily as easy, but it's really good to have thought through some of those backup plans beforehand. And sometimes tech just breaks down at either ends and you just have to go, you know what, we might have to call it off today, make a phone call, we'll make a plan. I might need to get some new equipment, or the client might need to get some new equipment to make that happen, or problem solve it with yourself or with another tech savvy person. And here's my recommendations for people who either are doing telehealth for the first time or who maybe haven't done a whole lot of it. So the first step is always take a deep breath, because trying anything new, breaking your habits is always a challenging thing. So take a deep breath and start to believe in yourself. The second thing I would recommend is to avoid thinking in absolutes. So what I often find when people are moving to telehealth is they want a lot of concreteness. They want to know which one's the best platform to use, or they're saying, how do you know which clients it's going to work with? And I'm like, well, all clients, given the right support and the right simplicity of technology, can probably tackle it. So it's about, I guess, weighing up those time investments. And also, in terms of platforms, there is no right platform. We'll go through that in a moment. You've also probably got to invest time. So as I mentioned before, about 4 hours will probably get you up to speed to do your basic things that you need to do over telehealth. But the more time you invest in it and the more practice you get and reflection you have on that, the better you're going to be. So you will need to choose the right technologies for your purpose and context. So each system, there's lots of systems out there. Some of the popular ones are your Covio systems, which has sort of high security, but sometimes a little bit more glitchy, and also doesn't have necessarily a huge range of features to it. Zoom can be pretty popular, and the paid version definitely has more functions to it and can have slightly higher security if you use it right, and quite easy to use, but probably not super high on the security end. And then there's a number of other things, like people use WhatsApp, people use FaceTime, people use Skype or Google Hangout, and a lot of those are free to use. Some of those have security risks, but in terms of security, I always tell people we need to pick a technology that's right for the context and the person. So everything we do in life has security and privacy risks. Even if you're in a closed clinic, what stops somebody from breaking in or walking in? Or what happens if somebody's phone in their pocket accidentally pocket dials somebody? So we've always had those risks. So it's about picking, if you've got a really low privacy sort of thing you're discussing, you probably don't need the most secure features, but at the other end you might. There's a lot of things you can do to make it more secure, like adding passwords to rooms or picking the right technology. So yeah, it's good to investigate a few platforms, see what's right for you. Make sure the clients know about some of those security or other risks. So a lot of clients actually come to me suggesting a technology they're more comfortable with. So if they say, for example, oh, this Zoom thing is a bit overwhelming, can we just FaceTime? Because I do that with my kids. I'm like, okay, totally happy to. Obviously FaceTime might not be as secure as some other systems, but if you're okay with that and you're comfortable with that sort of system, let's go with it. So as long as they're making informed choices, that's the most important thing there. I often find that I do use a number of different platforms. So having Zoom, having Google Hangout, having a bit of FaceTime is totally fine to mix those up. And sometimes you're going to have to pay for those. So things like the Zoom technology, it is a bit of an investment. If you want to get the pro versions rather than the free versions, and the pro version will give you a lot more features and a lot more usability. But as with anything, it's an investment. So if you're working in something like the NDIS space, where we're getting some really, I guess, high figures in terms of pay, around that $193 per hour, then we can afford to invest in something that's going to cost $15 a month. And even a couple of different platforms that are going to do that. So make sure that you put the investment in, because you're going to be saving elsewhere on things like petrol and all those other sorts of things that you use in your day. And also investing in peripherals as well. So you can use a very basic smartphone. You can use the inbuilt camera in a laptop, but that will have, I guess, less quality than some other peripherals you can get, like a plug-in external high definition camera, or having a headset. So I'd really strongly recommend getting a headset, because it means that the quality of audio at your end, at least, is going to be better. So even if the client's quality is not necessarily great, then you can, I guess, maximize what you can interpret and hear at your end. So a high definition camera is handy, a good space to do it in, and having, I guess, a blank wall behind you can be really good, or putting a bit of a screen up behind you, and also having a headset as well, or a really good microphone or camera and audio. And then you get into once you've, I guess, looked at some resources that are out there and watched a few videos on it, read a few blogs or platforms or guidelines around it, it's time to practice. So my suggestion is, the first time you practice with a tech-savvy friend, so you can get used to some of the features of the technology and get them on the other end and talking through things and trying the features. And then for your second practice, try to select the least tech-savvy person that you know and say, I really need your help. I know it's going to be stressful, and that's a chance for you to practice some of your tech problem solving abilities, and also to see what sort of things that clients who might not be necessarily hugely digitally literate want to know or need to practice. So I'd suggest those 2 practice sessions before you do your first session with a real client. I'd also suggest joining a community of practice. So you might have your own professional network of other OTs who are also going down this path that you want to work with, or there's Facebook groups like Telehealth Transformations, which can give you information and other people's experiences and questions around this as well. The next step is you're about to do your first telehealth session with somebody. So you're going to need to prep your client. You're going to need to send them the meeting invite, probably via email or via an SMS. And you're probably going to have to talk them through it. And as I said before, you're going to have to phone up and talk them through it the first time over the phone. You probably also want to prepare your own environment too. So make sure you've got the big things we think about are kids, partners, pets. They all happen. I'm sure sometime during this video you probably heard a car going past or a rooster crowing. So that's just part of my life, but I try to keep it outside my office space. And then your final step is just do it. You don't need to be perfect the first time. Give it a go, see what happens, reflect on it, and get some input from others.